Hi, my name is John Richardson. I serve as the regional minister for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in North Carolina. Many years ago, probably 30, almost 40 years ago now, my older sister and I were having a discussion about the poverty and the seeming hopelessness of people who live south of the Rio Grande border, our country's neighbors. And it was a conversation that I'm not sure why, but it has always stuck with me. And the part that I remember about it is when my sister said, when the people who live south of the Rio Grande border realize how much wealth and how much food is north of the Rio Grande in our country, they'll start walking north and no one will ever be able to stop them. Well, I went for 25, 30, 35 years remembering that, but not giving much thought to it. And then about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, my younger daughter had a good friend named Dan. And Dan was a volunteer for an organization in Tucson, Arizona named No More Deaths, a faith-based organization that tried to help find and locate and give water to immigrants that were traveling through the deserts of Arizona, most of them parents trying to find work so they could feed their children in Mexico and Latin America. But sometimes there were also children who were trying to find their parents who were in this country. And my daughter's friend Dan found Joselina. She had been dead for 2 or 3 days. A 13-year-old girl from El Salvador. And when Dan told us the story, I was reminded of what my sister said 35 years before. When they understand how much food we have, they'll start walking north and never stop. And I thought about what would I do if I lived in a place where I couldn't feed my family, my children. I hope that I would be responsible enough and have the courage to go wherever I needed to go to find work so that I could feed my daughters or my sons or my spouse or my parents, aged parents, whomever it might be that I was responsible for as the primary worker in the family. I hope that I would have the courage and the sense of responsibility to go wherever I needed to go, to take whatever risk I needed to take, just as the people who come from Mexico and Central America, but also who come from countries and other places around the world as well. So after Dan told us the story and understanding that Joselina died because she either didn't have enough water or probably got some dirty water, contaminated water, in desperation for fluids, and she died. My wife made the commitment, and she's renewed that commitment for the coming year. She makes 2 flags every month and sends them to a faith-based organization in Tucson, Humane Borders, that puts barrels of water in the desert and a large pole with a blue flag on top identifying those water stations so that those who are coming across the deserts, because that's the only way they can come to this country, will have water, if nothing else, to drink so that they will not die in the deserts. As a child, a 13-year-old, or as more recently, a 20-something-year-old and a 30-something-year-old were found in October and November in the deserts by the same group that our friend Dan works with. They had died from exposure in the deserts, coming to this country, one to join a woman to join her husband who was working in Texas, another a man who was coming here because he needed to provide for his family back home. And so my wife has made the commitment to continue making twice a month those blue flags because the desert winds and heat wear them out so quickly they need to be replenished quite often or replaced. And I've made a commitment to meet with pastors, to talk about immigration, where I live in North Carolina, where it's a significant issue socially and politically and theologically for some people, to tell them stories about people, because not all of my church folk in North Carolina get excited about political or social agendas or causes, but they care about people. And this is not a story about a cause. It's a story about people, about lives of people. Many who come to this country because they believe that God is calling them to a promised land, just as God called my ancestors in faith, the stories we read about in Scripture, to a promised land. And so I'm just simply going to start telling the stories in 2011. That's my commitment for the new year, committing myself to raising awareness where I live and where I can about the need for us to support any type of reform we can in this country that leads to a better life for those who come to this country as immigrants. Thank you.